two high-profile cases happening on both sides of the country today. First, in New York. Let's start there. Jury selection in Sean Diddy Combs' sex crimes trial will be narrowed down from the pool of 45 to the 12 jurors and 6 alternates who will decide the music mogul's fate. Now, Diddy has pleaded not guilty to all of those charges. Then, out in California, the Menendez brothers are back in court, but not for their resentencing hearing. Today's court appearance will be able to determine if Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman and his entire office will be recused from the case. The judge will also decide if the parole board report will be admissible for Eric and Lyle's resentencing hearing. Joining me now is trial attorney and legal analyst Misty Marris. Misty, we're covering the gamut this morning. Happy Friday to you.
Yes, we're hitting everything coast to coast.
Let's do it. Let's start with the Menendez brothers, just because there's a couple big issues to really address there. The brothers want the LA County DA and his whole office kicked off the case. You think the judge actually grants them that?
You know, Marky, it's a very, very difficult bar for the district attorney to be removed based on a conflict of interest. Basically, the argument is that Nathan Hochman and his office are biased and are not approaching this case neutrally. And the reason can't be just because their determination is different than the prior DA. So the couple different grounds that are raised. One relates to Hochman himself, that he actually did not disclose, according to the defense, that he grew up in the same area where the Menendez brothers, the terrible incident occurred, that he went to that high school. So he has a personal connection that would impede his ability to be neutral and be unbiased. The others are more tangible. One is that he violated Victims' Rights Act, because remember, we have a unique case. The victims in the case are actually advocating for the Menendez brothers to be released. So that's one piece. And then the third piece, this is the more novel issue. Everybody listen out for this today. There was a lawyer for Milton Anderson. If you remember, Milton Anderson, now deceased, Kitty's brother, he was the sole detractor against the release. His attorney has been added to the district attorney's office. So what the defense says, they were properly ethically walled off. So those are the issues to look for today.
Okay, so they want him off. But I know some people are fighting for the DA to stay on, including the California's attorney general, I should say. The other part of today that I think most people probably find more interesting is whether the judge will allow the new risk assessment reports on the brothers to be part of the resentencing hearing, right? I mean, I guess my question to you, why would documents like medical and psychiatric evaluations not be allowed by the judge?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, the risk evaluation is part of the probation process, and it was ordered because another path to freedom for the Menendez brothers is clemency by Governor Gavin Newsom. So that report, that risk assessment, relates directly to that process. What the defense says is that a risk assessment report isn't admissible for the purposes of resentencing, because what is being considered is different than in the probation process. Now, Marky, all of those things like medical records, statements that are made by the Menendez brothers, because there's going to be interview content, all of those things could be hearsay. They could violate their Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, their right to face their accusers. There's lots of different reasons why it could be violative of their rights for it to come into the hearing. Listen for this today, though. Some, none, or all of that could come in. There might be portions that can come in of the risk assessment and portions that will be excluded. But what we learned today about that will really shape how the resentencing hearing actually moves forward and what the argument will be.
Yeah, we'll see what that hearing looks like. Okay, let's move on over to the Sean Diddy Combs federal sex trafficking trial now. The final 12 jurors and 6 alternates should be finalized today. What does that process look like of whittling down the 45 potentials who made it past phase 1?
So these 45 are what's called qualified. It means the judges deemed them to be able to come in without any obvious bias and thinks that they can view this case about the evidence that comes into the courtroom as opposed to what they've heard outside. They haven't formulated opinions yet. But Marky, this is where the real strategy begins, because what happens now is there's what's called the preemptory strike process. The defense gets 10, the prosecutors get 6. And this is where they can eliminate jurors without saying the why. They don't have to explain why somebody's being eliminated. Yeah. This is where you look at the profile of all the jurors, their responses to those questionnaires, the internet deep dives that they've done behind the scenes, and assess whether or not they think somebody will be a problem for their case, right? You're looking for people that you think are not going to like your case too much. You're going to get rid of them and hope that you've got others who will be more open-minded with respect to the arguments you intend to make.
We'll see if those 12 and 6 get solidified today. And then, of course, opening statements begin on Monday. Let me just ask you before I let you go, Misty, because we keep, playing some of these court sketches. A lot of people are noticing that Diddy has gone gray, right? When it comes to juries, appearance matters. I mean, Harvey Weinstein walked into court, with a walker. Bill Cosby, his team said he was partially blind. Is this a strategy at all, you think, to let him stay gray for that jury?
Well, he doesn't get too many resources as Metropolitan Detention Center, probably no hair dye. But, Marky, to your point, you don't want him coming in looking like, the way he used to in the early 2000s when he was like a rap mogul, right? He's a huge person in the entertainment industry. So making him look a little more sympathetic, certainly something the defense is going to consider and probably part of the strategy.
Okay. Thanks for answering that. I've been curious about that this week. Big day ahead. Misty Marris, thank you so much as always. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Marky.
Yeah.